Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining this session on UNIX for testers. My name is Joglu Sarwar, and together we'll explore the essential UNIX commands that are particularly useful in testing environments. UNIX is a powerful operating system, and knowing how to navigate and work with it efficiently can greatly enhance your testing workflows. Throughout this presentation, I will walk you through key commands that help you manage files, explore directories, and analyze data, all of which are everyday tasks in a tester's role. Let's move to the next slide, where we will discuss the basic UNIX commands that every tester should be familiar with to get started comfortably. UNIX is an operating system that manages files, runs programs, and handles input and output. While it might look similar to DOS at first glance, it offers much more power and flexibility, especially when it comes to networking. In fact, the Internet was originally built on UNIX, which means it was designed to work smoothly with networks from the start. Another key feature is that it supports multiple users simultaneously, each with their own settings and permissions, so many people can be logged in and working on the system at the same time without interfering with each other. Multi-user environment is especially useful in testing, where different team members might be running tests or scripts independently but within the same system. Understanding UNIX helps testers navigate and control the environment more effectively, making tasks like managing files or monitoring program outputs much easier. Let's move to the next slide, where we will start exploring some essential UNIX commands for testers. UNIX was created back in 1970 at AT&T's Bell Labs, making it one of the oldest operating systems still influencing computing today. In contrast, Linux came about much later, in 1992, developed in Helsinki, Finland. UNIX has several major vendors like Sun, IBM, and HP, and these versions of UNIX typically run on specialized custom hardware designed for enterprise environments. On the other hand, Linux started off designed for Intel's x86 architecture, but has since been adapted to run on a wide variety of hardware platforms, from servers to smartphones. One big difference is that Linux is free and open source, unlike UNIX, which is usually proprietary. This free aspect of Linux has helped it grow rapidly, especially among testers and developers who need access to powerful tools without licensing costs. Understanding these differences helps clarify why Linux has become so popular in testing environments where flexibility and cost efficiency are important. Let's move to the next slide, where we will discuss more about UNIX and Linux in detail and their use cases. Let's move to the local login process, which is how a user accesses the UNIX system directly from their terminal. When you turn on your terminal or connect remotely, the terminal driver handles the input and output between you and the UNIX operating system. It acts like a middle layer that passes your commands from the keyboard to the system and sends the system's responses back to your screen. This interface allows you to run various application programs once you're logged in. For testers, understanding local login is essential because it's the first step in interacting with UNIX. Whether you're running test scripts, checking logs, or managing files. Getting comfortable with this will help you navigate UNIX efficiently and perform your testing tasks smoothly. Now, let's proceed to the next slide, where we'll discuss some basic UNIX commands every tester should know. When we talk about remote login, we're referring to the process of accessing a UNIX system from a different location over a network. This setup allows testers, developers, or administrators to connect to a UNIX server without being physically present at the machine. The way this works is through a terminal on your local computer, interacting with the UNIX system via networking protocols like Telnet or SSH. On the local side, a terminal driver manages input and output from your terminal, sending data across the network. On the UNIX server, networking protocols receive this data and interact with the pseudo-terminal driver, which acts like a virtual terminal to handle communication with various application programs. This method is crucial for testers who need to verify system behavior remotely or automate tests on multiple machines. It also helps when testing networked applications or services, ensuring everything works smoothly from the client to the server. being comfortable with remote login is fundamental for effective Unix testing and system management. Let's move to the next slide where we will discuss some essential commands for navigating Unix systems during these sessions. When working with Unix, the first step is often logging into the shell, which is your gateway to interact with the system through a terminal window. Once logged in, you can navigate the file system easily by moving up and down directories with commands like cd, which changes your current directory, and ls, which lists the files and folders in your current location. You can create new directories using mkdir or remove empty ones with rmdir. Managing files is straightforward. cp copies files, mv moves or renames them, and rm deletes files you no longer need. To view the content of files without opening an editor, cat is very handy, and you can check the current date and time with the date command. These commands let you quickly organize and manage your files directly from the terminal, which is especially useful in testing when you need to prepare test data, check logs, or clean up environments efficiently. By understanding and practicing these basic commands, you gain confidence navigating and controlling your Unix environment smoothly. Let's move to the next slide where we will discuss more about how to use these commands effectively in real scenarios. Let's take a closer look at some of the essential Unix commands that are useful for testers working in a Unix environment. The command ls lists the files in the current directory, and using the option A shows all files, including hidden ones, while the long format gives more detailed information about each file. Moving around directories is done with cd. For example, cd tempdir moves into a directory named tempdir. Cd takes you up one level, and you can also directly access specific paths like cddi at webdocs. Creating and removing directories are straightforward with mkdir and rmdir, but remember, rmdir only works if the directory is empty. Copying files with cp lets you duplicate or backup data easily, which is helpful before making changes. Deleting files is done with rm, and you can use wildcards like tmp to remove many files matching a pattern. Just be cautious here. The mv command helps move or rename files, which is useful during file organization. To view large files in manageable chunks, more displays content one page at a time, making it easier to read logs or code. If you need to print a file, LPR sends it directly to the printer. Finally, man brings up the manual pages for commands, offering detailed help whenever you need it. These commands form the backbone of interacting with Unix systems, and are particularly valuable for testers when managing files, navigating directories, and troubleshooting. Let's move to the next slide where we will dive deeper into more advanced Unix usage. Next, let's look at some practical Unix commands that are especially useful for testers. The grep command helps you find specific words in files, which is great when you want to locate errors or particular log entries quickly. Changing file permissions with chmod ensures that files are set correctly, for example, making scripts executable or restricting access to certain files. When you need to update your password, passwd is the straightforward way to do it. To monitor what's running on your system, ps lists all active processes, and combining it with grep lets you filter for specific users or programs, which is vital to identify if any test-related services are active. If a process becomes unresponsive, kill allows you to stop it by its ID. For developers on your team, GCC and G++ compile C and C++ programs respectively, turning code into executable programs. Managing files is easier with gzip, which compresses or decompresses files to save space or prepare files for transfer. For communication, the mail and pine commands let you send and read emails directly from the terminal. For remote access and file transfers, telnet and sh provide connections to other machines, with sh offering a secure method. Finally, FTP and NCFTP let you upload or download files from remote servers, useful for moving test data or reports. These commands give testers control and flexibility when working on Unix systems in testing environments. Let's move to the next slide, where we will discuss more system basics. Let's look at some useful Unix commands that you might find handy when testing or working in a Unix environment. The who command shows who is currently logged into the machine you're using, which helps if you want to check active users. Finger extends this by showing who is logged into other computers in the lab, giving you a broader picture of user activity. If you want to chat with someone logged in on a remote machine, utalk is the command to use, making it easy to communicate right from the terminal. The history command is useful because it shows all the recent commands you've typed, letting you review or reuse them. For a bit of fun, Fortune gives you random humorous messages to lighten your day. To check the current time and date quickly, the date command comes in handy. If you need to see a calendar for a specific month and year, such as September 2000, Cal lets you do that simply. The Zeiss command runs a small graphical tool that keeps track of where your cursor is, running quietly in the background, while Xcalc gives you a calculator tool that also runs in the background for quick calculations without leaving the terminal. Lastly, Impage is very practical when you want to print multiple pages on a single sheet. For example, putting 8 pages on one sheet to save paper, though the text might be small. All these commands are straightforward but quite powerful for everyday tasks testers might encounter while interacting with Unix systems. Here, we see a range of useful commands for running applications and tools directly from the Unix shell, which can be especially handy in testing and development work. For example, you can launch the Netscape browser or use XV to open a graphics file converter, which helps when you need to quickly view or adjust images. If you need to create or modify drawings, Xfig or Xpaint are good options, while GIMP offers more advanced photo editing similar to Photoshop. For checking spelling in a document, isspell is straightforward and efficient. Scientific documents often require LaTeX, which you can run here to test your files. Editors like Xemacs or Pico allow you to edit files directly in the terminal, and Sophos launches a full word processor when needed. There are also handy tools to interface DOS commands in Unix, such as mtools, which let you manage files on different drives or copy files easily. Lastly, noplot helps to create data plots graphically, which can be useful to visualize test results or data trends. Each of these commands simplifies workflows by letting you launch programs within your Unix environment without switching contexts, making testing and documentation much smoother. Let's move to the next slide, where we will continue exploring essential Unix commands for testers. The VI editor is widely accepted as the default text editor in Unix systems for several reasons. First, you can find it available across almost all Unix flavors, which makes it a consistent tool regardless of the specific environment you're working in. This consistency is important because the way VI functions is largely the same no matter the system. It's also very lightweight, requiring minimal system resources, which is especially useful when working on older machines or remote servers with limited capacity. Compared to older editors like ED or X, VI offers a much more user-friendly experience, making it easier to navigate and edit files efficiently. For anyone involved in testing or system administration, knowing VI is essential because you'll often need to quickly modify configuration files, scripts, or log files during your work. Mastering VI can improve your workflow and help you interact with the system more effectively. Let's move to the next slide, where we will continue exploring useful Unix tools for testing environments. Let's move to starting with the VI editor, which is a powerful and widely used text editor in Unix environments. 5i is almost always available on any Unix system, making it a reliable tool when you need to quickly edit scripts, configuration files, or logs during testing. It operates in different modes, mainly command mode for navigating and editing commands, and insert mode for typing text. For testers, knowing how to use VI means you can efficiently make changes to files directly on the server without needing a graphic interface. Simple commands like pressing I switch you to insert mode to enter text, while pressing ESC takes you back to command mode. Commands such as W, save your work, and key exits the editor. This versatility helps in troubleshooting, creating test scripts, or updating environment settings on the fly. Mastering the basics of VI helps you stay productive in any Unix-based testing environment. When using the VI editor, you'll work mainly in two modes, command mode and insert mode. Command mode is where you manage tasks like saving your work, moving the cursor around, copying and pasting text, or finding and replacing words. Anything you type here is treated as a command rather than text. Insert mode, on the other hand, is where you actually type the content that gets saved into your file. Everything you type in insert mode becomes part of the document. To switch between these modes, you typically use the ESC key. For example, if you want to start inserting text, you first press ESC to ensure you're in command mode, then press I to enter insert mode. This organization helps keep editing efficient without accidentally messing up your content while navigating or running commands, which is especially handy when you're working through code or configuration files in a testing environment. Let's move on to the next slide, where we will explore practical examples of using VI commands in real Unix testing scenarios. When you want to exit VI, you start by making sure you're in command mode, which you can get to by pressing the ESC key. To quit the editor, type a colon followed by Q and press return. This will close ZC if no changes have been made. If you've made changes but want to exit without saving, you can add an exclamation mark like Q, which forces VC to quit and discard any modifications. To save the file, use W, which writes the current contents to disk without quitting. You can also combine saving and quitting by typing ESC, then Shift plus colon, and enter WQ. The quickest way to save and exit is a shortcut where you press ESC and then type ZZ in uppercase, which saves your work and closes the editor in one step. These commands are essential when working with VI in testing environments because they allow you to quickly edit and manage configuration or script files without disrupting your workflow. Let's move on to the next slide, where we'll continue exploring useful Unix commands. To move around within a file without changing the text, you need to be in command mode, which you can enter by pressing the ESC key twice. In this mode, you can navigate one character at a time using simple keyboard commands. Pressing K moves the cursor up a line, J moves it down a line, H moves it left by one character, and L moves it right by one character. Remember, VI is case sensitive, so it's important to use these commands exactly as shown. These movement commands are especially useful when you're reviewing logs or configuration files in testing, allowing you to navigate quickly without accidentally modifying the content. Move on to the next slide, where we will explore more ways to interact with files efficiently. To move efficiently within a file in VI, you need to be in command mode. Remember, pressing ESC twice will get you there. Once in this mode, several useful commands help you navigate quickly. For example, pressing 0 feet or moves the cursor to the beginning of the current line, making it easy to start editing from the left. The command jumps to the end of the line, which is handy when you want to add something at the end. To move word by word, W shifts the cursor to the start of the next word, while B moves it back to the previous word, helping you scan through the text faster. You can also jump between sentences with to reach the start of the current sentence and to go to the beginning of the next one. Lastly, E takes you to the end of a blank delimited word, useful when you want to precisely navigate to word boundaries during editing. These commands save time and keep you focused when reviewing or adjusting code, which is especially useful for testers, verifying script accuracy, or searching through logs. Let's move to the next slide, where we will explore more advanced text manipulation commands in VI. Let's move on to control commands that help you navigate your terminal efficiently. For example, ctrl+b moves the screen backward by one full page, which is handy if you want to review earlier output without scrolling line by line. To scroll up or down by just one line, you can use ctrl+ to move the screen up one line, and Ctrl+C to move it down one line. If you want to jump half a page instead, Ctrl+U moves the screen up by half a page, while Ctrl+D moves it down by the same amount. For faster navigation, Ctrl+V brings the screen up a full page again, and Ctrl+F moves it down one full page. Sometimes, the display can get a bit cluttered or may not refresh correctly, and in those cases, Ctrl+L redraws the screen, giving you a clean view. These commands are really useful during testing when you're working with logs or outputs that are longer than your screen, and you need to move quickly through the content without losing your place. Understanding these shortcuts can save you quite a bit of time and make your work smoother and more efficient. Here are some key control commands that help you navigate through files more efficiently in the VI editor. For instance, pressing Ctrl and D together moves you forward by half a screen, so you can quickly skim through the content without going line by line. Similarly, Ctrl and F moves forward by a full screen, which is handy when you want to jump ahead more quickly. If you need to scroll back, Ctrl and U will move you backward by half a screen, letting you review previous content without losing your place. These shortcuts are especially useful in testing when you need to examine logs or configuration files quickly and efficiently. Mastering these control commands can save you time and make working in a terminal more productive. Let's move on to the next slide, where we will continue exploring commands that enhance your editing capabilities. To edit a file in VI, you first need to switch from command mode to insert mode, because only then can you add or change text. There are several commands to enter insert mode depending on where you want to start typing. For example, pressing I lets you insert text right before the cursor's current position. If you want to add text at the very beginning of a line, use I. To insert after the cursor, press A, and to add text at the end of the line, press A. You can also create a new line below the current cursor position by pressing O, or above it by pressing O. These commands help you quickly move into editing mode without losing your place, which is especially useful in testing when you need to update scripts or configuration files efficiently. Once you get comfortable with these, editing becomes much faster and more intuitive compared to switching back and forth between modes blindly. Let's move to the next slide, where we'll explore more practical commands you'll use frequently. When working in command mode in VI, there are several useful commands for deleting characters or lines that help you quickly clean up text without switching to insert mode. For example, pressing X deletes the character right under the cursor, which is handy if you just want to remove a single unwanted letter. If you want to delete the character before the cursor, you can use uppercase X. To delete from where the cursor is to the start or end of a line, you have commands like D and D. These save time compared to deleting characters one by one. The command DW deletes from the cursor position to the start of the next word, helping you remove chunks of text quickly. For deleting the rest of the current line starting from the cursor, you can use D, and if you need to delete the entire line your cursor is on, DD does that in one go. In a testing environment, this ability to efficiently edit text files saves valuable time when you're working with scripts or configuration files, allowing you to fix or update content quickly without disrupting your workflow. Let's move to the next slide, where we will discuss how to save and exit files after editing. Now let's look at some commands that allow you to change text in B without deleting it first. The CC command clears an entire line and puts you straight into insert mode, so you can start typing new content right away. If you want to change just a specific word, use CW, which replaces the word from where your cursor points up to the end of that word. For quick single character changes, the R command lets you overwrite the character under the cursor and then returns you to command mode immediately, perfect for small corrections. When you need to overwrite several characters in a row, pressing R puts VI into replace mode, where you can type over existing text until you hit escape to stop. The S command deletes the character under the cursor and then switches into insert mode so you can type a new character. Lastly, sys deletes the whole line your cursor is on and put you in insert mode so you can replace it. These commands are very handy during testing when you need to quickly tweak text in scripts or configuration files without extra steps. Let's move to the next slide where we will wrap up with some final tips on using VI efficiently. When working in a Unix environment, the ability to copy and paste text efficiently can save a lot of time, especially during testing when you often need to reuse commands or configurations. For copying, the command YY copies the entire current line, which is handy when you want to duplicate a line quickly without worrying about selecting it manually. If you only want to copy a part of the text, like a single word, you use YW to copy from where the cursor is positioned on that word to the end of it. Once the text is copied, you have two ways to paste it. P places the copied text just after the cursor position, and P inserts it right before the cursor. These commands are particularly useful if you're editing scripts or configuration files in VI during software testing, as you can move and reuse snippets of code effortlessly without switching to mouse controls, which helps maintain a smooth workflow. Let's move to the next slide, where we will wrap up with a few concluding points. To wrap up, let's look at some useful tools that can help you practice Unix commands on systems like Windows. Cygwin is a popular option that provides a Unix-like environment and command line interface, making it easier to run Unix commands without needing a separate Unix machine. Another option is MKS Tools, which offers Unix utilities for Windows with features tailored to development and testing environments. Both tools are practical for testers because they allow you to simulate Unix commands, automate tasks, and work within familiar Windows setups while learning or executing Unix commands efficiently. For more resources and detailed tutorials, you can visit the website mentioned, which offers additional guidance and examples. Thank you for following along, and I encourage you to keep practicing with these tools to strengthen your command line skills. Stay connected for more updates and learning opportunities.